Hello, everyone. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now, joining me on CFL Talk, David Morassutti. David, how you doing?
Doing all right. Starting the new year off with just wondering like it's just been a blur. It kind of like between Christmas and New Year's, everything kind of just it happens, and you're just like, oh, it's already the new year.
I can't disagree with you. It's all a blur, and depending on what you put in the eggnog, it can be more of a blur.
Yeah, blue. Yeah,
And I'm
definitely.
having eggnog,
Ah,
not the blurry variety.
okay. I was gonna say I didn't get the memo that we were having eggnog on the show.
Mine's the blinding variety.
Uh, um, I wasn't really much of an eggnog person growing up,
Neither was I, but I
and then
grew up now.
that was funny because I was at a friend's house, and I'm like, I don't really care for eggnog. He's like, here, I'll make it better. Throws in some alcohol into it. He's like, here,
Rum,
now you'll.
rum.
Yeah,
And that's what happens after all. You go, you can hear yourself go rum. Yes. So I guess it's the drinking season, I guess. Yeah. So by the way, we don't do this show while we're driving. So if we did happen to have eggnog with something in it, it would be okay because we're not driving while we do this. We're just doing the show.
yeah.
Um, Christmas, I had the pleasure of sampling some of your mother's baked goods. Number one, very nice. I enjoyed it. I still have a couple left. Um, oh, no, one left. Um, I got to tell you, this is the time of season you have to be very careful. Now, I know you and your family are doing a family thing. The family that diets together might be able to succeed together. If there's a bad influence in the house, you and I both know, David, everything it's the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, we're gonna if you're gonna do it, it's always hard like where you're the one who's watching what you're eating. So you have your salad, you have something nice, vegetables. Person besides you has like a steak or
Mm.
God else knows what else, or they're and you're just like seriously,
Or
just
pasta al carbonara.
oh, all this nice, delicious, looking thing, and you're just like, I'm stuck with the veggies, the greens.
Yeah, yep. I do that, and I do other things. I sample a bit of everything, and thanks to people like your mother who make offerings. My mother as well made some offerings.
Mhm.
Other people made offerings, and we had to add a table to the kitchen for the sweets. We have a sweet table, David. I've never had a sweet table.
You'd be surprised. We always have to like set aside areas of the kitchen, and it's never enough room.
Yeah, and we're okay. We don't have to be serious all the time. It's okay for us not to be serious. And the reason I say that is apparently, if we can talk about the Canadian Football League since we happen to be here,
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
we did the schmoozing. It all went well. That's great. We both have our challenges on what to eat, what not to eat. And then you've got the situation where you have uh, Nathan Rourke, who set Twitter ablaze a little bit with a tweet pre a pre-announcement advising people a big announcement was coming up.
It's future.
Yes, all about his future. And of course, one of the NFL teams said, "Hey, come here, baby. We got something for you here. We got some cold hard cash, and with this the big time." That's what everybody was thinking, right? Turns out he was just getting engaged.
funny enough, his and then this when he announced he was getting engaged, he's like, "Wait, what? Did you expect something else?"
Absolutely.
He's having so much fun. I love that though. I love that he's having fun with it because everyone he's probably gotten just a million messages from people, or he's seeing tweets from people say, "So you're gonna stay in the CFL? You're gonna go to the NFL?" He's probably getting that almost every day. So I always say the best way to handle those situations is to embrace it and have a little bit of fun with it if you can.
Well, he apparently has. He's definitely had fun with it. I do know as well that I can say this. That I sent him a tweet, and I responded to his tweet by saying, "So I guess the concentrating on football is over." Because the big thing with him was, I'm not on the internet. I'm only concentrating on football. That's what his other people would say about him. He
Yeah.
doesn't have Twitter. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. He doesn't even have a girlfriend. It's all about football. Well, a year of success can I guess change you a little bit, unless we were misled a little bit. And I don't mean in a nasty way. I mean, people were building up his commitment to playing the game. He needs no longer prove that he's committed to the game. I think it's a pretty safe bet that he kind of has a knack for being a quarterback in the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, no, I would definitely say that. I would, yeah, I'm pretty certain, yeah, that's going to be the case.
We do have issues around the league as far as quarterbacks are concerned. Lang signs with Ottawa, ex Argo, been there for a couple of years, has been a real anchor for that team. We are getting some signings, but I think that the big push is on its way. And, here, of course, we think about Toronto because that's a team we cover. I'm not really sure right now that McLeod Bethel Thompson's coming back to the Argos.
This is an interesting situation because there have been reports saying he's leaning towards wanting to play because it was saying a lot of people were saying, "Oh, he's retiring, he's not coming back." I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, you know what? Why does he have to rush that decision? Right? He doesn't.
Ray waited till February to make that decision.
Right?
The last few years, right?
You got time, use it. I think for him, he knows that maybe his mindset changes a little bit now that he's led a team to a championship or he's won a title. He's not as concerned about being the guy, or he's willing to maybe take a different type of role. I don't know, um, but indications that he wants to play another season. But the other thing Toronto needs to figure out here is they want to try to keep as much of their current team together. It gets a little more expensive when a guy wins a title and he might have offers elsewhere.
Or guys, or
Not
guys. You could
if
add an S to that too,
you
right?
want to maintain that level of depth. Well, is your quarterback when you are trying to sign a quarterback like McLeod Beth Thompson? He's not going to come cheap. We already know that. He was now in comparison to other quarterbacks, he was very inexpensive in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah,
in comparison to even like a Mazzoli.
yeah. When you talk number one quarterbacks,
Yeah, but the question here now becomes: do the Argos want to go that route? Because indications also say the Argos would be fine if Chad Kelly wants to be the starter. At the same time, if you're seeing Chad Kelly on social media right now, he's throwing it out there that he's willing to take any NFL job he can get. If you saw the Denver Broncos, he's like, "I'm right here. Like, sign me up." I know for a fact that if he could get another chance to go to the NFL, he will. But I also say you haven't played enough to really. I don't think he's given enough of a
I don't
enough.
think the last 3 minutes of a championship game
Exactly.
qualifies you as,
One game,
even though it's a championship game.
one game, the last game of the season, a meaningless game in meaningless meaningless in the standings, but not meaningless to the guys who played the game. And that 3 minutes, yeah, definitely not enough. Um, yeah, I think like the Argos, I'm sure they're probably thinking about that quarterback. They've done a couple of small signings, nothing drastic. And I'm wondering if I don't know if the quarterback situation is what's giving them pause because maybe they want to know if they're going to have that guy, if they're going to have both of them.
It's a big difference. A quarterback salary, you said it at the beginning. If you're a number one quarterback, you get X amount, and then it goes up from there.
Exactly, right? He's like I can't remember the exact amount McLeod got. I think it was closer to 400,000.
Yep.
I think it was roughly in that range when you consider.
No much lower than 375.
Yeah, right. And so that's a significant amount of money. In a lot of ways, that could be two.
In the cap context, absolutely.
Yeah, that could be two like that's like having Andrew Harris and maybe even Enoch Mwamba. Roughly, those two guys together equals almost what McLeod Bethel Thompson made. So you have to you have to really think about, is it worth it? Even if wants to come back, is he the one that's going to, is Toronto going to be the one that gives him a job? That's the question.
That's why I'm saying, and that's why I said, I'm not really sure he's coming back to Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're Toronto, and I'll drill down a little deeper on what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
To be more specific, if you don't sign McLeod Bethel Thompson and you bring in another backup quarterback to be Kelly's backup, if you feel he's ready, which the coach said he did on a live mic, on our live mic, he said, yeah, he's ready to be a CFL starter. So he has faith in Kelly.
Yep.
So with Kelly, he signed for a lot less than McLeod Bethel Thompson. They could, in fact, save the Thompson money, bring in a guy. I don't know, you know, two things happen if you make Kelly the starter. You lose his ability that what he's learned about the game the last I guess it's 2 years he's been with the team. You lose that when you get a backup for him. So not only do you have a less experienced starter, you have a less experienced backup. So what do? Do you get a backup that you feel is more ready to be a solid backup because you're not 100% sure with your starter? And what's the value that quarterback will ask for, money, and how will that affect the cap? So you see, it's a tender balance that you have to perform. This is where, quite frankly, this is where Pinball Clemens and the GM, the assistant GM, and the coach, this is where they earn their money, because that team that won the Grey Cup was put together in the offseason prior to winning the Grey Cup. A lot of the work that they did and the reason they won the Grey Cup was because of what they did in that offseason. And that's the same reason why Winnipeg won it twice. It's the work they do in preparation for the season that sets up that championship team. Mind you, there's stuff that has to happen. We heard from the running back, the Argo running back that you talked about, that he, came from Winnipeg, came to Toronto, decided, you know what, here in Toronto, it's not the same as it was in Winnipeg. We got stuff to learn here. And that's what happens with a team, right? You got to have the pieces together, and then you got to figure out a way to bond. And that's why coaches always talk about, like, at the end, when the Grey Cup is won, one of the things they say, this is the only time this group's going to be together. And every year, even though Winnipeg won twice in a row, they did it with two different sets of players. Even though we talked about how much continuity they had.
Exactly, right. And in a lot of ways, we talked about with the CFL and the whole having the two quarterbacks, right? When you consider, like, a lot of teams, there's that luxury of having two guys. Like what the Argos had was almost a luxury in that they felt confident enough with Chad Kelly to be the backup. Hamilton was going with that when they had Dane Evans and Jeremiah Mazzoli. They thought that was going to be the right approach. You're seeing it now. I don't think there's a team in the CFL that didn't that used just the one quarterback from start to end. The only thing,
Absolutely.
Winnipeg probably like Colaros played a majority, but I mean there was games where he wasn't playing, or you know they had someone come in. But almost every team, if you like, I'm just thinking about it, started two quarterbacks. And I think that dynamic might slowly start shifting how teams prioritize the quarterback position in terms of salary, but also, as you said, the preparation, right? You have to get that. That sometimes that second player would never get a lot of reps and practice with the starters. Now it's almost like teams have to plan for it and game plan for that, and they have to.
And in some cases, protect that player like the Argos did Kelly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
the thing of it is as well is when you talk about them, the most important thing we joke about it. People joke about it all the time. What's the most important ability? Well, it's availability, and quarterbacks uh, availability is one hit away from a disability or an inability to play. So, you have to have a second quarterback because they're so impactful in the game. They are the quarterback. We take for granted what they're called. And, when we talk about, even in other sports, you talk about a defenseman that handles the offense. You know, Bob Orr was referred to as the quarterback of the offense of the Boston Bruins. And it's because that position is so important. It carries with it, a lot of importance. Guys like Brady, have developed a respect and an expectation of bringing a team to the world of championships, whether they win or not. But, that's what a great quarterback can do. He can carry the team to a championship. Now, does it mean they win the championship because of him? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes the opportunity comes up. So that's why what we're talking about, preparation, and what we're talking about here, I think we agree, is that all the moves that they make this off season will have relevance as the season goes on and by the time they get to the end of the season. Because there's going to be people out there who are going to say, "Yeah, but Frank, you know what, Frank, David, you guys are silly. You know, teams make moves during the season all the time, and they do this and they do that." Well, the reason they make moves during the season, folks, is because of injuries and or the players they counted on at this time of the year didn't pan out. You talked about it, David. Until the second quarterback plays, you really don't know how good they are. We really don't know how good Kelly is. We just know that in the Grey Cup, he eluded a tackle, made a pass, and for 3 minutes, he turned a game that the Argos could have lost into a game they could have won and did.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think and you know what? I guarantee many people when Kelly came into the game, they're just like there was just no expectation that he could do what he did, right? Just because he's coming in cold, he's coming in at a tough time in the game where Winnipeg's just thinking we're going to close this out, right? And they're going to like it's not like he's coming in, midway through the game, early in the game. This is like crunch time, and he comes in. But he said, and we asked him, he said, I was ready, right? And you think about how would he have been ready if he didn't get those snaps in that last game of the season? How ready would he have been for all that? And
Absolutely.
that's something I think more teams are starting to realize now. It helps sometimes when you have a quarterback. Now the good thing for the Argos and for Chad Kelly, he's he's the guy that does the quarterback sneak. He does the 1 yard sneak, so he's at least getting an idea of being in the huddle, handling the football, snapping the football. And I think maybe that's probably the only benefit I find of having that having doing the quarterback sneaks is that you have quarterbacks who are both quarterbacks are getting touches in the game. May not be throwing the ball, but they're getting the tempo. They're getting the idea of how the game is being run. But I think now you're starting to see some teams, and we saw the Argos do it. We see them do it. I saw them do it in BC, where you get the other guy in for a few plays. I mean, you see it all the time in Hamilton. Hamilton was running both quarterbacks, and it was like no rhyme or reason for it. It was just part of their game plan.
I
I
think they're getting away from that now. I don't think they like that idea anymore. I think they've played that one out. They're looking for a stud now. They want a number one quarterback, not a 1A, not a 1B. They want a number one quarterback. But sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. What I really wanted to say is that Chad Kelly came into the game with his team behind. Chad Kelly, the preparation that you talked about, because you brilliantly you made the point that he had a lot of experience carrying the ball, because that's essentially what he did. He was a third and short, third and goal. He was the guy that was there, had one offensive play to make. This was a little different. He couldn't tuck and run. He had to make something happen because the team was behind. And to me, that's one of the things that he did that I believe kind of exploded his confidence a little bit. He became the guy that he was. When he came to Toronto, he came here with a little humility, hadn't played football in years,
right,
came here with the idea of learning a new game, came here because there was nowhere else for him to go in regards to where he wanted to be, which was the NFL. So he came to Canada, to Toronto, and to the CFL to see if he could be a quarterback. Well, he was handed a gift. That situation that he found himself in, which was a team in a Grey Cup championship game needing some offensive um, excitement from the quarterback, and he gave it to them. But here's the thing: part of the reason why he was able to give it to them wasn't because of Chad Kelly or his ability, was because the book on him was kind of thin, and Winnipeg didn't know how to deal with Kelly. It was like we talked about after the Grey Cup, David, and I believe this. That was a break, in my opinion. That was a break for the Argos, and that helped them win the Grey Cup. The fact that McLeod Bethel Thompson got hurt, they had to change quarterbacks. Winnipeg had to work on a different quarterback, and add to it the ability that Kelly has, not taking that away from him, and add to the fact that McLeod Bethel Thompson brought them to the precipice before he got injured. It really was a team victory. So I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think anybody in the business is going to give Chad Kelly a lot of credit, or as much as he may think he deserves in that victory, in my opinion.
right. No, and here's the thing: how many times have we seen a team change, the complexion of a team change because of an injury, and a guy comes in, he plays so well, and then the other guy's ready to come back, even during the season, and they're like, well, this guy's been so good, we can't sit him. And that's something that, I mean, that's what a lot of Argo fans were like, well, now it's Chad Kelly's time. He showed it. He did it.
Yeah, it's even going to be harder now for the team. The fans are going to, because most fans are only going to look at. I don't think they're going to. Most fans just they go at face value, because the complexities of the game aren't as relevant as how their team does and how they're cheering and what they're cheering for. Um, I don't know if you ask uh, every Argo fan why they want to have Chad Kelly in, they won't give you statistical proof why he belongs in there. They won't give you historical proof. They'll only tell you they need a change, and and that's why they call for him. They just want to change. They really don't know what they're getting. They're just saying, we don't like the way things are going. Let's try something else.
No, exactly, right? And some of them have always, and he's the younger guy too, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
A little bit flashier, and that's why it's like that as well.
absolutely. So we started with Nathan doing his thing about getting engaged. Um, what have you heard, and what do you think's going on with him? He's had some nibbles.
He's had quite a few actually. Like
Absolutely.
he's had quite a few nibbles. It's just a matter of I think
Who's
he's
going to bite down on it?
I think there's a, he. I don't think he can sign yet. Too. I
Yeah,
think there's. I
February.
think he's not the only one. There's quite a few. There's quite a few players that have done that have gone workouts. Like Nathan Rourke isn't the only one.
Every year it's the same thing. There's Canadian Football League players, and I feel that if two or three stick, that's a good year for the Canadian Football League players that go down there.
Yeah, this is going to remain the because how often does a quarterback from the CFL other than Chris Streveler recent memory?
Man, he's like the the bobber when you go fishing. Disappears back again, disappears back again, disappears back again. Now he's back again because the Jets made a comeback. Okay.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And so, um, there's going to be, I think there's going to be an influx, a bit of an influx of players that go down. I wonder if some players also wonder about the XFL, and if that's another potential.
Wherever there's money,
Mhm.
can't blame them.
Yeah,
They're in
so
a business.
they're in, yeah, exactly. And look, I don't fault like Nathan Rourke. I think he's worked out for at least six or like, at least seven teams. So he's gonna get. I feel like he's gonna get something. How many teams have worked him out? How many teams are, you know, how many teams are looking at him? I can't see how one doesn't offer him something, even if
And
it's a
and that team, David, will be overlooking the injury
exactly.
before
Well,
they know how he's back.
but that's why the workout is so important for. That's why he's done so many workouts because he's got and there's so many medicals that are involved too. Like for sure.
Did I mention to you what happened when he came to the Avail after he won his award? You remember in Hamilton, they come into the back room with all us media types,
Yeah.
all right, and they go onto that stage and hold the trophies,
Yeah.
right? Well, when he climbed up those stairs, he tripped and fell. And everybody went, oh. So, you know, it's something to think about because a team's going to have to take a chance that this guy's injury is one that he's overcoming, and not just overcoming, but quickly.
Yeah.
Because you want to be a team that has him, and then you end up having a guy on the IR, all year or for 6 months.
So here's the thing. I mean, with Nathan Rourke and his in like, well, he's not going to get a spot on a 53-man roster right now. This is a
Right.
contract where he hopefully gets into the mix or even practice. I mean, practice roster. Like he's. This isn't. I don't think an NFL team is concerned about the injury if they feel like he can, with some time off. It's not gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be that big of an obstacle for him. I just think they're looking at all the other intangibles, right? His size is gonna be the biggest one. There
His
aren't
arm,
many quarterback.
his
We've
knee.
had this discussion before. That's gonna be the biggest thing that teams are gonna check with him. Trey Ford is also doing some workouts, and he's made it known that he is going to be working out as a quarterback, not at any other position, because some teams, and we've seen in the NFL where they'll have a quarterback, he ain't playing quarterback. He's a tight end. He's running the ball, bootleg, like. But that's something that the fit has to be there, and Nathan Rourke isn't going to be going in, as a guy who's going to come in and the thing about it, the NFL doesn't have a position on the team where they say we're going to give our backup the chance to sneak a 1 yard up. It doesn't happen in the NFL. That's why you have a running back in the NFL to do that. So he's got to do it by showing the parts of his game that made him a star this season.
What they do have in the NFL, though, and that's something that's grown in the past couple of years, is a real usefulness for a backup quarterback that gets some work. And they rely more on backup quarterbacks today than they did, I'll say, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. A guy like Strevler doesn't get brought to the NFL if it isn't for the change of thinking when it comes to the quarterback position in the NFL. And that's a good sign for a lot of other quarterbacks. That's a good thing. Like, you had 32 starters. Now you got 64 guys that'll get in there. That's a pretty good thing for, and that's part of the challenge that we have here in the Canadian Football League in having quarterbacks, because as long as there's a chance that a quarterback's going to get some reps in the NFL, a lot of them are going to want to go to the NFL, even the Canadian ones, like we're learning with Nathan Rourke. So the challenge in the Canadian Football League, if I can bring it back to them, is that it's the quarterback, the quarterback, the quarterback, the three most important positions in the Canadian Football League: quarterback, quarterback, and quarterback. Um, I don't mean to throw shade on the rest of the players on the team, but the fact is the game goes through the quarterback. Now, if you have a quarterback that is not the best quarterback, but cannot hurt you, does not hurt you, then it helps to have great running backs like the Argos had, and like other teams have, great receivers, that can find the ball that maybe isn't thrown in the best place, So there is absolutely an importance when it comes to other players on the team, but it does start with the quarterback.
It does. No, it definitely does. Like we were talking about how the playoffs. What made the playoffs so intriguing was the quarterback play was actually good, and you selfishly want to keep your best quarterbacks in the league, but it also says something, and it says something to other quarterbacks that are looking maybe to continue playing football. The CFL might be an avenue to keep your career going, and if you're a good enough quarterback and you do well in the CFL, maybe an NFL team gives you a look.
That's the Nathan Rourke doesn't get a chance in the NFL based on his resume if he doesn't build on it in the CFL.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely.
So, what story at this time? There's the negotiation list. The CFL has revealed them. So we've got some opportunities to see as fans who are available. That's one piece of information we can talk about now or in the future. Also, we've been invited next week, a little longer than next week, 10 days from now. We've been invited to talk to the commissioner, the coaches, and the general managers of all the CFL teams.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying and looking forward to that, because the first question I'm going to ask the BC Lion management team is, what surprise do you have for us this year?
Yeah. No, exactly. Um, we see some coaching changes too. So there's going to be some teams that, Ottawa and Montreal, both
Interesting choices.
very interesting choice. You know what? I thought there was a good chance that Dice would stick around in Ottawa. The players just seem to gravitate towards him. He's been there, so he knows what the issues are and he can fix them. The the Alouettes hiring Jason Moss was very curious for me, in my opinion, for a couple of reasons. I understand and we had when we had Mark on, he said it's likely going to be him because of a relationship with Danny Machocha. But I said, this was the first time I had seen the francophone media at a CFL game. It was the first.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty okay. They can try to figure out ways to get questions in English to the coaches, but for a fact they love the fact that they could ask Danny Machocha a question in French and they would get a response in French.
Right.
I,
That's not going to happen now.
that's not going to happen now, and that's what surprised me a little bit about this decision. Just
But
because
what francophone coach is out there
Right.
right? That a head coach, and I know I'm not throwing shade again on Quebec coaches. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just asking a question. I honestly, I know of one that was an offensive coordinator in Toronto, but he didn't shine up his resume while he was here.
Yeah.
So I mean, who's out there? So you kind of don't. It's not like hockey. Like in hockey, the Montreal media, or in to suggest anyway, the Quebec media can get very testy about people that aren't French running their team. And not only do they have a guy who isn't French, he isn't even Canadian running their team. So I can't imagine how they feel about what's going on there. So I think you have to take a back seat to race or language and put what's most important to your fans, truly important, which is a good team, a team that can win a championship. And Montreal under Machocha came very close. They really did. They didn't miss by much,
Yeah.
and the fact that you know they played the Argos well, they just that they didn't get the last drive, like Trevor Harris said. If I would have had one more drive, all I needed was one more drive. The clock ran out on,
Yeah.
and they could have been in the Grey Cup.
Definitely. No, that's that you can't. Yeah, you can't really argue that. That's for sure. Um.
So now they get a guy very experienced in the Canadian Football League, an offensive guy for a team that historically, in the recent history anyway, has been a very dominant defense. I'm sorry. They've had a very good defense over the years. Combine it with a better offense, and they'll be a team to contend with in the CFL East.
Definitely. No, I think the East. The East. I think a lot of teams recognize that the East is a viable avenue to get to the Grey Cup. And if you get, and as we see, you get to the Grey Cup, it's anyone's game. The last this past year, I think really showed that. And for Winnipeg, I mean, in the West, it's not as open. Let's just say there's the road goes through Winnipeg, as everyone will say, just because they're able to keep everything together as long as they can. So yeah, I think in the East, I think the Montreal realizes there's an opportunity here. We were that close to getting to the Grey Cup. Ottawa, I feel like if our team could just be that much marginally better, maybe we can have a chance to make it to the playoffs. I wonder how Hamilton feels about all this. That's my question.
Well,
They're
they
still waiting.
represented the East two years in a row.
They're still
Once
waiting.
once as a favorite.
Yeah.
Let's make something clear here before I don't mean to throw shade on the. I'm throwing a lot of shade today, and not throwing a lot of shade today, but I am going to throw shade on Winnipeg. Uh, they won back-to-back Grey Cups, but let's not forget they were the underdog in the first win they had. They weren't the favorite, so they became the favorite by winning the Grey Cup and then having the season they did the following year. Hamilton was the favorite that year. Remember, they'd won what, 13, 15 games they won, and they ended up losing the Grey Cup. So they were the favorite. So it's not out of history. History has proven that it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. Ostensibly, to get you to the Grey Cup is all that matters. You got to do enough during the season to get to the Grey Cup, get to the playoff, get to win it, and then show up at the Grey Cup. And anything can happen. The 8-10 Ottawa Red Blacks proved it. The 9-9 Argos proved it. And I think, if I remember correctly, Winnipeg was, what were they, 10-8, 9-9 when they won the first one. They weren't a dominant team the first time they won the Grey Cup.
Are you thinking about what year? 2017.
Yeah,
They were. I think they were barely 500. Yeah, they were barely 500.
they're either 9-9 or 10-8. I don't think they were 11-7. Oh, did they even play that many games that year?
No, so they were 9-9.
14. They were
Nine.
9-9. See, there you go. So, that's my point. My point is very simple. Greatness is established, it's not given. You have to establish your greatness. And the real, that's why when they won the Grey Cup back to back, that's what made them so special. It doesn't matter that they won the first one, as not a favorite, but then to win the next one, that's the challenge the Argos are going to have to meet this year. And how do they approach that? They're going to be playing against, I think, a better Ottawa team, a better Montreal team, and a better Hamilton team. And yes, there's lots of room for improvement with all those teams. Not so much Montreal, but Ottawa and Hamilton could use a lot of improvement. Montreal, a little bit of improvement could go a long way this year.
Exactly, right? And we don't know exactly how. There's so many. This is going to be a very interesting free agency because if you look at Montreal, Toronto, and Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton, Ottawa, how many of those teams have a defined quarterback situation? Maybe one in Ottawa with Mazzoli.
If he comes back and if he's the man,
Yeah, like if they I'm going to assume only going to assume yes just because I believe he was signed to a 2-year deal,
yes.
but we also know CFL contract is not set in stone. So
What are
there's
they going to find better
that's yeah, exactly, right?
at this time?
He was signed to a 2-year deal. What are they going to find that's better? Do they want to go? Yeah, that's I think the better. I think that's a question that teams don't necessarily always ask. You know, they release guys because of cap reasons. They release players, and I'm like, all right, you just released this player. You have something better to replace.
Well, the
That
good news is, the good, yeah, the good. I'm going to pick up on that. The good news is that the Canadian Football League, the gap between the great quarterbacks, like the best quarterbacks and the quarterbacks that want to be great, the gap has been narrowed. Last year proved to us it was narrowed. I love saying this, and I'll keep saying it. The semifinals last year, the four quarterbacks, any one of them could have won the Grey Cup, and I would not have been surprised. Long time since we've been able to say that. There are, with let's not forget the obvious. The obvious is the best quarterback in the Canadian Football League was a rookie. If he doesn't get hurt, he proves it.
yeah,
I hate to say it,
he would have been the unanimous
right?
MOP unanimous. Like he was on his way to just no doubt he would have been the best quarterback. He would have no doubt about any of that. No, you're
Mazzoli gets healthy. Mazzoli gets healthy. McLeod Bethel Thompson has more respect. We got a quarterback in Edmonton who signed a pretty big deal and looks to be a keeper, big, fast, and can run. We're looking at, Trevor Harris is still here, like I said. We have probably the best roster of quarterbacks in the Canadian Football League that we've had in a few years. And then I'll give it back to you, to your point. But we don't have 9 starters, 9 legitimate, dyed in the wool starters. We might have 8, we might have 7. Now, if they can build on that and they can find an 8 and 9, we can see this league turn into the kind of league I think it can be and it should be. Because again, it comes down to the quarterbacks. The game goes through the quarterbacks.
it really does. I mean, look, if every team had a good quarterback, I have a lot more competition in the CFL. And
The
people,
betting lines would be more interesting too.
yep, people say, "Oh, there's 9 teams. How can they not find a team not find a quarterback?" Because you have to find a way to beat the other 8 teams, right? Like the other 8 teams have a pretty good talent pool, right? Like they're all these teams are going from the same talent pool. It's not like another team has found a secret way to find a quarterback. They're all going through the same means. It's just how a team puts it all together, right?
Absolutely. 100%, David. That's the best thing you've said all night.
Well, thank you. It only took about 44 minutes to get there, but we got there.
I mean, you said a lot of other really good things, but this was the best one.
Right?
The reason it's the best is because you're pointing out the fact that it's not just the quarterbacks that establish how good they are. The game runs through the quarterback, but the game has to allow the quarterback to be successful as well, or make it possible for the quarterback to be successful.
McLeod Bethel Thompson has had 3 head coaches in the CFL. Mark Trestman, noted quarterback whisperer. He had Corey Chamberlain, but Corey Chamberlain brought in
Defensive coordinator.
Yeah, but he brought in why am I messing up? He
The
was
Frenchman.
the Frenchman from Montreal. Um, Chapdelaine.
Chapdelaine, yeah.
All right, noted.
Had a lot of respect.
Right, respected offensive CFL coach, and then he had he's had so many different coaches. You have so many opportunities. Like Ryan Dinwiddie could have come in and said, you know what, we need to start fresh. Instead, he said, you know what, let's give this guy a shot. Let's see if we can he basically said, let's see if we can make him a winner. We think he can be a winner. We've seen the talent is there. But what did Ryan Dinwiddie do? We need to put him in a situation, in a position to be
Absolutely.
successful. And I think that's the biggest accomplishment that Ryan Dinwiddie, like, people are like, oh, second season of head coach, you win a Grey Cup. I think his biggest accomplishment was taking a quarterback that many thought was done, should never have gone back to the Argos, and turned him into a winning quarterback. That's the sign of a good coach, right? And that's why the Stampeders have been so good for so many years. Didn't matter who the quarterback was, he was going to do well. Doesn't matter. They find a way to make the guy work. Winnipeg, they realized, you know what? If we can get that quarterback, we think this team can go there. And what did they do? They get Zach Collaros, and we're going to make sure Zach Collaros not only is a good quarterback, but that he is successful, and we're going to make sure that he doesn't get injured, because we know that's been the knock on Zach Collaros. The teams that fail, I feel like, are the ones that don't put the quarterbacks in that position to succeed.
That's important.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, and I think the biggest, the most respectful thing I can say about Ryan Dinwiddie is he's a damn the torpedoes kind of person. He does what he's going to do because he believes it, because he worked at figuring out how he's going to do it. And a really important quality is his thick skin. You may not think that, folks, but I can tell you, with some of the mistakes that he made over the season, silly mistakes, like ones that, we can laugh at now, right? But at the time, people were, raising eyebrows to some of the moves that he made. But he rose above those mistakes and those errors. The good that he was doing totally overcame that. And that's how good a coach he is, that he rose above a lot of silly mistakes that would have taken down any other coach. It didn't take him down, and he just kept plowing ahead. And his quarterback kept, him and his quarterback, they have a symbiotic relationship. By definition, they have a symbiotic relationship.
No,
and it worked for them.
It did. Definitely worked. Definitely for sure.
We've only got a couple of minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first question that comes to your mind that you want to ask a GM or a coach in the winter meetings, at the winter meetings?
I mean, coach and GM, how do you continue to ensure that the play on the field can continue to get better? I think gone are the COVID excuses, I would say.
Absolutely.
Now, how do we eliminate this idea of dynasties where Winnipeg is not guaranteed to be in the Grey Cup every year? What's going to change to allow more balanced competition?
Well, we've got a team that won the Grey Cup that nobody thinks should have won it, or not enough people think they should have won it. So the dynasty issue, I think, is out the window. I mean, it's open. I said the question I'll ask. I want to ask BC management, okay, what surprise have you got us for this year? But if I had an opportunity to ask another question, would be the commissioner, and you can too. I think we got seconds left anyway. So, how important is it that the game has improved the way it has, and have you felt this was coming the way this was? Did you have faith in it, and is that why you didn't have much to say before now?
Exactly. We'll see what they say.
It'll be interesting to say the least. All right, we're going to hand it back to Eduardo for David Morassutti. David, thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you, Frank.
I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, airing live Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Candid Frank.